Today we're going to be looking at the Super7 Micronauts figure Biotron, but before we go into it in depth, why don't we take a look at the history of the character of Biotron. Biotron was originally designed in 1975 in Japan under the name Robot Man. He was the hero character in the 1975 second year of the Microman toy line. He was part of the Victory series, which if you look at his waist, the little VS stands for Victory series, Microman Victory. And he was basically pushed as their big robot hero. And if his color scheme looks familiar, that's because he was a major influence on characters like Diaclone Convoy and Bandai's Bike Robo, which would become Optimus Prime and Psykill in the United States. But we're here to talk about Robot Man and Biotron. So, after it was released in 1975, Mego Corporation licensed several of the Microman molds and released them in the United States. And that's how we ended up getting Biotron. In 1976, he was released, and he was the main heroic character in the very first wave of Micronauts figures. Now, of course, Biotron became a major character in the Marvel Comics Micronauts series, where they made up a storyline for him, but he wasn't really based on anything from the original toy line or from Microman. They made him a character who was kind of an amalgamation of, I would say, Chewbacca and R2-D2, as the Micronauts was a heavily inspired Star Wars story. He was basically the co-pilot and companion to the Luke Skywalker character. So this guy was his companion. He was sold as a roboid instead of a droid, and basically helped pilot the ship and repair things. The biography on the package for Biotron from Super 7 is directly referencing the Marvel Comics storyline, even though there are other comic book series of the Micronauts from Image Comics and IDW. This story basically calls him the personal assistant of Commander Arcturus Ran, and it even gave him a little biography tech spec that looks a heck of a lot like an early Transformers tech spec. It only has 6 attributes: strength, intelligence, speed, endurance, courage, and skill. There's no rank or firepower that we would see on the original toys. And basically it's strength 7, intelligence 7, speed 7, endurance is down at 3, courage at 6, and skill at 6. So he has so-so attributes for being the heroic character of the toy line, but I guess they were just basing him on the plucky sidekick robot for the hero. The figure itself stands about 3.9 inches tall, a bit larger than a Micronauts or a G.I. Joe figure of similar style. And he's built as an O-ring style figure, like many of the original Micronauts and later G.I. Joes that copied that design. His feet feature 3.5 millimeter holes that fit in many standard G.I. Joe stands. His backpack, which is the tread unit, has a 4.5 millimeter hole, so it doesn't have the same 5 millimeter interchangeability seen on most Micronauts. Let's take some comparison shots of the Super 7 Biotron with some other figures. Here is Biotron with a standard spheroid action figure. As you can see, he towers over the 3 3/4 inch tall spheroid. He has very similar articulation, although he does not have the bicep swivel, instead switching it for a wrist swivel, which is unusual for most lines other than Micronauts. Here is Super 7's Biotron compared to the 3D printed Biotron figure that I designed myself. My 3D printed figure is mostly inspired by the Micro Robot Man from Takara, with some elements of Acro 2. And as you can see, it's a bit smaller, but it has a very, very similar design. Here he is compared to an original Micronauts Biotron figure. The original figure was a towering 13 inches tall. Pretty impressive compared to the little 4-inch. But the little 4-inch does have much better articulation, particularly in the legs. Unfortunately, the new Super 7 Biotron figure cannot form a lunar explorer or 2 space cars like the original Biotron could. Best we could do is have him piloting the lunar explorer. Here is Super 7's Biotron with the 1-inch tall Nanonauts figure that I designed a few years ago. This was my attempt to make a Diaclone driver type figure that looked like Biotron. Unfortunately, he's still too wide to fit into the chest cavity, so I might have to redesign the figure just a bit thinner. Overall, Biotron is a cool little figure with lots of nostalgia, and I'd like to see them do more with him. The original Biotron had several remolds and recolors in both the US and Japan, and it would be nice to see them do that with this mold as well. It's a shame they couldn't give him the 5mm port compatibility, but I understand them wanting to go with keeping him compatible with their G.I. Joes. I'll have to make some adapters to get him to work with standard Micronauts toys. Thanks for watching this video. Like, comment, and subscribe. And leave your comment below. What do you think of the Super 7 Micronauts Biotron? And which figures do you think should be in the next wave of release?